Hey, this is Mike. Thank you so much for choosing this video. Today we're checking out a Thermal Master P3. So this is a new thermal imaging camera by Thermal Master, and this one has a focus ring and it has a macro lens capability. It also has the ability to connect to a PC, Apple or Android devices. So a iPad, your computer, laptop, Android phones, Android tablets, that kind of stuff. So it's very versatile. So inside the box, you see the different specs here. But inside the box, you'll see three main things. The actual camera with a case, we'll get to that in a second. The quick start guide, which has like a little booklet here. And with a device like this, getting started, you want to have clear instructions. So having it in color and clear English is kind of a big deal, especially to me. And then it has this cable, and basically it's a USB extension cable, and you have a USB-C there, which the device plugs into, and then this will plug into either USB-A or USB-C. So once again, your laptop or whatever. All right, so inside here, this is a nice little case, and we can open this up. I like the way it has this little Thermal Master eye here on the zipper. Inside this case, we'll find an adapter for some of the Apple devices. So you have this adapter here. So you have USB-C, which is, the new standard, but you have some Apple devices that use that. So having that adapter is a good addition. So the actual device is here. It's pretty cool. It has like this black and gold theme going on. I like that case. That's pretty good. And you see it right here. You see the little Thermal Master eye. And it has this little focus ring, which is very interesting. So here's the focus ring right here. So we can get those real close-up shots. And so there's the P3 designation. To test out the macro lens, we're going to look at this, which is a SSD, and it's one of the smaller types. And here on that board, you have some small circuitry. So we have some RAM down here, and let me kind of zoom out so you can see. It's just a small computer basically, and so it has that little piece there, and we're going to try to focus in on these little components that do have some heat dissipation on the SSD. Okay, so I have it aimed right over and focused on this little section here on the board. You see how there's all these little tiny components. They're barely visible with your eye, but look at that. This thing can really get a look at all the different temperature differences on this little tiny board once you focus it in. And so let's go ahead and try to do something on this computer and see if we can change the temperatures here. Okay, so I'm restarting the computer because it's doing an update. So it's going to have to read off of this SSD in order to do that. But in the meantime, so yeah, the temperature kind of fluctuates. I don't know if you can tell here on that one module on the SSD. These other ones don't appear to be as affected as that one. And then you have these small components around it, which have little slight variations in their temperatures. You can also take a look at the RAM as well down here. See what the temperatures here look like. You see all these small components here on the motherboard. But yeah, this is where the visible action is for the most part. far as temperature changes. The ability to dial in the focus precisely to what you need is really a game changer. This is very impressive. So you can put it right in a precise spot and get the clarity that you want depending on the distance that the camera is from whatever you're looking at. So that way you get the full sharpness of the camera system and the resolution. The Thermal Master app can be downloaded from Apple Store or the Android Store or on their own website for PC. But the basic features are about the same. And so right here is the main screen. There's the ability to turn on the camera. It shows that the camera is connected here. And we have options of gallery, which is stuff that pictures and video that we already took. And then we also have settings and then customer service. So settings would go here, and then you can go into the device details. And then you have image settings, which you can turn off the audio there if you want. Temperature settings, and the temperature units, it has Kelvin, Celsius, or Fahrenheit. You also have temperature alarms that you can turn on. So you can quickly scan something, and if it's over a particular or higher or lower than the temperature you set, it'll give you an audible alarm. Pretty cool. And then you have other settings here, language, stuff like that. There is a full user manual right here, and it's the same manual that we have here. So you don't have to carry around this book. You can go through this, basically a PDF, and look up something if you need. So go back out of that. All right, so let's go to the camera. So let's put this back down, like so. And when we hit the camera, let it load up. Now I'm tilting it up a little bit to make sure the orientation is right from my angle, so it automatically rotates these different things here. Now, if you want to rotate the actual image, there is a setting for that. You see these icons here to the right? When you select one like this, it pops up options here on this bar. And this is the temperature options. So right now I have it set to where it has the high and low and the center automatically pop up, and it'll move around depending on what's going on, right? You can also change the font color if you'd like to. And then you can also have a specific spot on the screen that you want to have a, have the temperatures only in that part. So with a circle, we can draw a circle here, and it'll limit the temperatures to within that circle, the temperature readings. And it'll show right up here, not only the maximum, the minimum, but also the average right here. And we can also do it with a square. So let's go and delete that circle, and let's draw a square, like so. Now, same thing, high, low, and average will show up here within the square. It excludes everything else as far as reading temperatures. We can delete that. And then we also have a line here. So we can draw a line across a wire or anywhere. And once again, high, low, and average only on that line. And it'll show you precisely where everything is. We can delete that. And then we also have single points. We have up to 3 points. 1, 2, 3. And if we keep adding points, it'll delete the oldest one. So we can keep adding points if we want, but it's always going to delete the oldest one that's on the screen. And once again, it'll give us the temperatures of the different points right here on the corner. And they're stable, and they're not moving around. So let's go ahead and delete that. And so when we have this turned on, and it's showing the high, low, and center, they're moving around a lot. So sometimes, if the temperatures are changing rapidly, then it's hard to, focus on that. So if you have a box or a circle, it limits the motion of those numbers, and then it puts it in the corner there. So it depends on your needs and what you're doing. The next one here is the different views, the different basically how it displays the temperature. So this first one we've been on is called medical. The next one is called lava. Then we have gold, dim light. This one's called CETA, I think. Next one is aurora. This one is Jungle. Rainbow, that's a popular one. Red Hot, Iron Red, Black Hot, and White Hot. So depending on your needs, I just kind of like when I'm doing something, I'll pick the one that looks the best as far as achieving what I want to achieve as far as the visually here. So that one right there looks pretty good for this demonstration here. The next one is to record or take a picture. So we can take a picture, we can record, and when we have the boxes and all that stuff popped up, then it'll show on the picture. So that way, depending on what you want. So like this picture right here, you see the picture, it shows the different temperatures there when I took the picture. The next one is picture-in-picture. And what I did was I relocated the camera over here because it uses the camera on your device. So on this iPad, the camera is over here on this corner. So if you want to have picture-in-picture and it look, useful, then you want to have it's fine on a phone because the phone's smaller, but with a tablet, it makes it a little bit easier to relocate this thermal camera somewhat closer to the actual camera on the device. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it on here. So that's the icon here. We turn it on and we have a transparency, and there's the little picture-in-picture right there. So basically what we're doing is we're able to see some context here on this picture-in-picture. See the regular image versus, next to the thermal image, just to give you a little bit better context. There's certain scenarios in which this might come in handy, having the picture-in-picture view. And so when you're recording, you can have that on the screen as well. This top one, when we select that, you're able to rotate the image here. So depending on your point of view, you can rotate it and then get it to where it lines up with, how you have the device, the orientation of this. Because if you use the extension cable like you saw, you're going to have to change the orientation, depending on which way the camera is facing and the way you're looking at the screen. You can also mirror it for certain scenarios. You can also pull up a scale, and when you turn that on, when you take a picture, it'll show that scale within the picture. So that way you can kind of tell what the colors mean when you're looking at the picture for reference later. You can also adjust the contrast. So if you're not getting the image that you want, you can adjust the contrast here. You can also adjust the brightness, and these really change the way it looks. So, depending on your needs, they could come in handy, but they do change the look quite a bit. So you want to, pick the one that you want and then just kind of stick to it, so that way you can reference it better. Especially if you're taking a lot of pictures, you just want to have that consistent imagery basically throughout all those pictures, and not change it too much between pictures. So it might get a little bit confusing because it changes the way it looks. But yeah, those are the different options there. So yeah, this will be basically your default screen for taking pictures, doing video. And then over here, if you're dealing with things that are much higher temperature, you're going to have to change the level of temperatures here. So you can put on automatic if you'd like, but this is how you adjust that. The highest resolution is achieved by pressing this button. So when you turn that on or off, you can see that resolution gives you the maximum resolution when it's on. Up here is to calibrate. So every once in a while, it'll kind of like freeze for a second and auto-calibrate. If you want to manually calibrate, you just hit that button. And it makes like a little ticking sound, and then it'll recalibrate based on what it's looking at. It's like an auto-calibration by default, though. Another cool thing about the Thermal Master app is that you're able to just pinch zoom. So if you want to get really close to and look at something, you can zoom in and get some super detail on these little tiny components. Then you can see what zoom factor you're in. And this is a digital zoom to give you an idea of the clarity of the image, that you can actually zoom in that much. Okay, so now I have the FLIR Pro connected here, so you can show you how much difference there is in resolution and clarity. The FLIR, we're looking at the same board. I can't look at the exact same time with both of them, but to give you an idea of what they both look like, the FLIR looks like blobs. You can barely tell any kind of difference here, and it's hard to really tell what you're looking at looking through the FLIR. Now the FLIR has a fixed lens. It's not able to focus and get a real tight macro shot of a board. So it's not really good for this particular purpose of looking close up. And it just has a low resolution. It's very low resolution. It's very choppy. So as I move it, it's very choppy and laggy. So it's a little frustrating when you're trying to use it. So the ThermalMaster P3 is nice and smooth, instant, no lag, and much better image clarity and resolution, especially for this kind of stuff. Just in general, automotive use, or with the P3 having a focus ring, being able to dial it in on a macro shot is excellent. The FLIR 1 uses a combination of thermal imaging and visual light, basically, and it overlays a regular camera view over the thermal imaging to make the illusion of detail. Now, this works sometimes okay, but it's usually not really lining up properly because the lenses aren't on top of each other, so the parallax is a little bit off. But also, when you have low light, when there's either low light or no light, then all of a sudden you lose all that context, all that detail. Now I'm using a computer board that has very distinct features, so that way you can tell the difference here. But the ThermalMaster just has a higher resolution, and you're able to maintain all the detail in low light or absolutely zero light. When there's low light or no light, the FLIR 1 loses all that detail that is layering on there, so you might lose context in your images or your video. But the ThermalMaster is able to maintain a high level of detail just because it has a higher resolution and higher frame rate thermal imaging camera. So you can see when the lights are on, it has the overlay, but as soon as the lights turn off, that overlay for the FLIR is gone, and so it starts to get very blurry because the resolution on the FLIR is very low, and the ThermalMaster has a higher resolution, so you're able to give you a lot of context, and the actual image is just so much clearer compared to the blurriness of the FLIR 1. Waiting for this engine to warm up, you can see that the ThermalMaster is much more smooth as far as there's no choppiness. The FLIR has a lot of choppiness, so, and the FLIR is trying to overlay a visual image over the thermal imaging, which doesn't always line up properly, and so it kind of looks a little bit wonky. But the clarity of the ThermalMaster is able to be so clear, and the resolution is so good that you don't really need that overlay. You do have the ability to have the picture-in-picture, but the overlay really isn't necessary because you have such high resolution and clarity on the ThermalMaster already, and just being able to, when you move it around, not have issues with it being choppy and stuff like that. So one of the things about this device is it's a handheld device. Like, you're going to have it in your hand and you're going to be moving around with it. And so basically what you want to do is have a device that's not so choppy. So like the FLIR is just very choppy, so as you move it around, it doesn't look as good as the ThermalMaster. So if you're trying to look at something there on the screen and it's real choppy, then it doesn't look as good, not as clear. The ThermalMaster, if you happen to be looking at something, you're moving the camera around, you get much better detail.